Welcome back. West Virginia Attorney General Patrick Morrisey officially calling on Vice President Kamala Harris to invoke the 25th Amendment and to seek and remove President Biden from office. In a letter, Morrisey writes, quote, "For too long, Americans have had to stand by and watch as their president has experienced a profound cognitive decline. A new Reuters Ipsos poll finds that 53% of Americans do think President Biden got special treatment in Special Counsel Robert Hur's investigation into his handling of classified documents. That number includes 29% of Democrats, by the way. Hur is saying that he would not recommend criminal charges against Biden, despite his willful action in taking the documents and holding on to them, in part because he did not think he could convince a jury to convict, quote, an elderly man with a poor memory. Joining me right now is KA Consulting President, Fox News contributor, pollster, and former senior counselor to President Trump, Kellyanne Conway. Kellyanne, great to see you. Thank you for being here. Your reaction to all of this?
Well, of course, this is why Donald Trump and his allies talk about a two-tier justice system. You've got Donald Trump in courthouses. You have Joe Biden facing the court of public opinion. And I think the first time this will all truly be litigated, Biden Inc. and all of the corruption that we're seeing, the new photos from Hunter from 2018 and 19 that you've been detailing all morning, Maria, that's going to face the voters for the first time this fall and beginning early fall with early voting. We have not held Joe Biden to account as a country on any of this because so much of it has been revealed while he's been president. One question I have, Maria, is I just can't get my arms around why all these academic institutions and, of course, mainstream media outlets continue to ask these survey questions about Joe Biden, who they want to be president. They don't want Donald Trump. They're asking all these questions. Is he too old? Should somebody else run? How much confidence do you have in Kamala's competence? It's amazing to me that they're investing tens of millions of dollars in polling each year that shows Joe Biden needs to leave the stage. Second thing, when that poll asks, did Joe Biden get special treatment, that's incredibly important in light of the Robert Hur report, because you basically have a cognitive test now. We don't need one in the president's physical. We just got one for the executive branch. That's and true. I want everybody to understand, most of these complaints right now, Maria, are coming from inside the House. You've got these leaks coming that Susan Rice is insulting Xavier Becerra, calling him an idiot and things we can't say on your show in polite company. You've got people arguing about who knows more about the border, who doesn't want to touch it. It's political kryptonite. But then we have people going after the vice president, that she basically has a no-show job. She doesn't want to do the work. They prepare binders for her. She doesn't open them. She doesn't study. So if you're going to invoke the 25th Amendment, we're going to get Kamala Harris. And that scares people even more than a President Joe Biden, because he lacks the agility and the acuity, but she has demonstrated absolutely no interest in working hard and putting in the effort to be an effective commander-in-chief.
Yeah, and yet she told the Wall Street Journal the other day she is ready to serve. Several names have been floated to replace President Biden if he, in fact, does drop out of this race. Obviously, Vice President Kamala Harris, California Governor Gavin Newsom is another one. Former First Lady Michelle Obama has been discussed. Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer and Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear. Kellyanne, what are your thoughts once November comes around in terms of who the Democrat nominee will be?
Well, I mean, you look at that list and you realize how thin the bench is on the Democratic side. This is part of the problem of why they have to keep Biden and Harris and keep deluding themselves that that ticket could be Trump and whoever's VP pick is. You know, Maria, Donald Trump's list for VP pick is probably triple or quadruple the number of serious people that of the five that you just showed that can possibly replace Biden. I think all of them have problems. Michelle Obama, wife of, you can imagine, I'm not a big fan of spouses getting their power and notoriety through their spouses. And what has she won? What has she done? I can respect her as a first lady or a great mother or great daughter for having her mother in that White House with them. But what has she done in the 7 years since they've left the White House? Where is the Michelle Obama Center for Women and Girls? Again, we can't just say, oh, this is somebody who has the Obama name, Barack Obama will really be running the country, let's go. I think that's a non-starter. She's never really shown an interest in political office. But I want to say this, no matter who the Democratic nominee is, if it's not Biden, they need to eat and own all of the Biden failings and flailings. So I would say, don't worry, everyone. Every mistake that Joe Biden has made, the Afghanistan pullout, killing the trade deals, killing those pipeline jobs, making us energy dependent, starting new wars after Donald Trump is the first president in 72 years to start no new wars. Whoever the Democratic nominee is needs to be held to account for all of that plus. So with Gavin Newsom, you say you spent $17.5 billion on the homelessness crisis in California. It got worse. Do the rest of us want to be California? Beautiful state that is now in a man-made crisis. Andy Beshear, that's an interesting one in Kentucky. A red state governor, Andy Beshear. But does he really align with how radical and left of center the Democratic Party has become? Gretchen Whitmer, I was in the White House for 4 years. Yeah. I was in the Situation Room those days on the coronavirus. There were few Democratic governors who were less impressive than Gretchen Whitmer when it came. And she was higher in her own supply of executive power. Okay. People should go back and look at it. They've got a thin bench. Maria, last point. If you think Joe Biden's unpopular in that NBC News poll from last week, the person less popular than him is Kamala Harris.
Yeah, it's interesting because I asked President Trump about his criteria in terms of how he's picking his running mate, and it was very different than, I think, the criteria that Biden and the Democrats used to choose Kamala Harris. Watch this. What criteria are you using to identify who your running mate is?
Always, it's got to be one thing. It's got to be who would be a good president. I mean, you always have to think that because, you know, in case of emergency, things happen, right? No matter who you are, things happen. It's got to be number one.
It feels like we are in that emergency moment, and yet when you look at the Democrats' choice in VP, was it that? Did they think, oh, this person could step in and become president? I don't know.
No, probably not, because he made very clear at the time that he was only going to choose a woman, and toward the end,
so that was the criteria, black woman. Yeah,
that was the criteria. He was very upfront about that.
Yeah,
and we pay the. I wrote an op-ed in the New York Times last Monday, Maria, saying who should Trump's number two be, and I go at length that this pick a woman theory is fine. Trump's got lots of qualified women to choose from.
Yeah,
but we are paying the consequences as a country every day for Joe Biden's bad choice.
Yeah,
and by the way, she's not ready to be commander in chief. The Democrats themselves don't think that. But for President Trump, I think this day one strategy is important. Three things. He should pick someone who helps him win. He should pick someone who helps him govern. And he should pick someone who can be ready on day one. Yeah. But he has an embarrassment of riches on our side of qualified people who can do that.
Well, there was polling shared with the New York Post. It shows former President Trump actually trailing President Biden by 1 point in the 2 New York districts that participated in last night's special election. Biden took that district by 10 points in the 2020 election. But Nikki Haley's campaign is now blaming Trump for Mazi Pilip's loss to Democrat Tom Suozzi last night. Nikki Haley claims Trump is a huge weight on the Republican candidates. Trump did not endorse or campaign at all, by the way, for Mazi Pilip. He just put out this statement on Truth Social. Just watch this very foolish woman, Melesa Pilip, running in a race where she did not endorse me and tried to straddle the fence when she would have easily won if she understood anything about modern-day politics in America. So obviously, Kellyanne, the 45th president, was not all in for Mazi Pilip, and she lost. Tom Suozzi's got the seat. Your thoughts?
Oh, you know, with Trump and these endorsements, he didn't endorse her. He wasn't asked to campaign for her. He didn't get involved, apparently, but neither did Nikki. I mean, she runs around as talking about her biography, which is impressive. I'm glad that Mazi Pilip is a Republican. She has an amazing biography, but you know what? Folks care about your American dream, but they really want their own restored.
Yeah,
and that's what they're looking for. Suozzi had a huge name ID difference, but I'm going to say this. Suozzi did a very clever thing, Maria, and it's advisable to all Republicans. What Suozzi did was he was being attacked on the border because of Biden's porous border and Mayorkas and the rest of them. He paid for mailers, ads, went out and did press conferences and public appearances, distancing himself from Biden and Harris and the border czar, whatever that is, and the Democratic Party's position on the border. And he went in an entirely different direction, and it paid dividends. Republicans should do that on abortion. Instead of being ostriches with their head in the sand, they should be peacocks and say, hold on, this is what it means in 2024 to be a pro-life party. But I think that the people didn't choose her as the nominee. The party did, and that's a mistake. A bunch of guys there chose her as the party nominee, and then hid her. Yeah. The New York Times wrote an article that she had 0 people on her payroll. Well, you can't do that. So now we have Suozzi. Yeah,
they are not
going to. Maybe we can
Democrats,
count on Swazi to cross over on the border.
The Democrats are going to do whatever it takes to keep Trump out. You know that. The South Carolina primary is now 10 days away. Saturday, February 22nd, a new YouGov CBS News poll has Trump up 35 points on Nikki Haley among likely GOP South Carolina voters. 76% said Nikki Haley is not part of the MAGA movement. 20% say Haley is being from South Carolina makes them more likely to vote for her. Kellyanne, how do you think South Carolina and the rest of the year plays out and this election?
Well, South Carolina would be the fourth geographic place of uniqueness where Haley loses to Trump by double digits. She's lost to him by double digits in the Midwest, Iowa, in the Northeast, New Hampshire, in the Rocky Mountain West, Nevada, and now in the South, in South Carolina. We're going to see the same result again and again, but I think she's beholden to her donors who are still funding her, stroking 6-7-figure checks, baby, to her super PAC. By the way, when they come to people like me and say, I'd like to get involved in the business councils, I want to write a check to the inauguration, we'll see what the answer is. You know what, folks? I want to say to corporate America, you invested in ESG and DEI and CRT. Time to invest in the USA and get rid of Biden. He's bad for business.
Thank you. Great to see you this morning, Kellyanne. We appreciate it. Kellyanne Conway joining us, and we'll be